Welcome back to my channel. Today, I will be discussing the Chinese digital Yuan or digital RMB or digital RMB. So, before I proceed, the first question is, why do Chinese governments decided to introduce a digital currency? So, I'll be providing you with different information from the Chinese government. So the first information I have for you, around October 2020, the Chinese government gave approximately 1.5 million Chinese yuan to 50,000 Chinese consumers each in a lottery. And this, the Chinese government, according to them, they believe it will provide a greater visibility of how the money flow around the Chinese economy. Moving forward, the Chinese government believe this digital yuan will help them track the illicit flows of money laundering, or like the terrorists trying to fund any obnoxious acts. Also, one of the other points they made mention is that printing banknotes cost a lot of money and also is somewhat expensive. So they believe that when you want to print money, there's a lot of factors you have to put in place, like importing paper, the ink, the printing machine, the labor. From the Chinese government perspective, they believe if they introduce the digital currency, they can save more money by, that is what we call cost reduction, by trying to do away from paying money for the labor, the machine, servicing the machine, the electricity the machine will be generating, paying for the cost of importing the paper for printing. So to them, that is a lot of money. And they also believe that, when you print a superfluous amount of money in the economy, that will first, one thing it will do to your economy, it will devalue your economy and it will devalue your currency. And other thing, when you have a superfluous amount of money in circulation, that will also cause inflation. And so one of the reasons why the Chinese were trying to move away from bill like a hard currency to digital, I will share a screen with you to show you, I will talk about the SWIFT and what does it mean? What does the SWIFT mean? So now you look on my screen, the SWIFT, it means the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. Once again, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. And what is the function of SWIFT? So the function of SWIFT is to enable them to give all the countries to transact internationally. And what is the currency for transaction? Dollar. Dollar is the currency for transaction. So from China perspective, China believes since dollar is the currency for international transaction, that means the US government can influence the decision of the SWIFT. And according to the data out there, SWIFT, after the 2001 September 9/11, the US has a deal with the SWIFT to enable them to track where the money is coming from all these terrorist groups. So SWIFT since that time have been able to track over 3 million fund. When people do a transaction, they'll be able to track it. But China believe that this is an infringement on their own, privacy, that they have no privacy, they have no say, that the US government has the powers to see what is going on in China. So they are trying to break away from such. And moving forward, so the Chinese believe that with these kind of things, it is easier for the US to impose sanction on any country that do not abide by this regulation or do not give access, for the SWIFT to track what kind of transaction you are doing in your country. And they can impose this sanction. And when they impose this sanction in any country, that means this country will not be able to trade internationally. And if they were unable to trade internationally, that means the like of China cannot do a business with them. And we've seen this with US sanctioning the Iran for not complying with the nuclear deal. So now, coming from the US perspective, before I go to US perspective, I already make some video about the digital ID, about the Chinese. So the first question we raise in regards to what the Chinese government talk about the benefit of what they were doing with the digital Yuan. You already know Chinese are expanding the business strategy in all over the world and especially in Africa. They've been buying everywhere, loaning people the money. And now with this digital Yuan, this money was supported by the Chinese bank. So, and when you have a phone, you don't need no internet to transact digital. So far as any phone that you have, as soon as the phone has a battery, it will be easier for you to do a digital currency. But one of the concern is, even though with this Chinese digital currency, how effective it is, because it's very effective in China, because China has been doing that transaction online. But what about the rest of the world? Does that mean you still have to transact that money back to dollar? You exchange it to dollar before you can do your transaction. So people raise a question that they have a Bitcoins, they have a blockchain, and China's were claiming that the blockchain were not supported cannot be regulated. So that means they are not using blockchain or unauthorized cryptocurrency. So they're trying to bring down cryptocurrency. But people were raising the concern that with what the Chinese government has been doing, with over 600 million surveillance camera, trying to give them a digital ID, that this will be a comprehensive avenue for them to track and monitor the Chinese citizens' life. So people further raise the question of, that one of the motive for digital RMB is to comprehensive track and monitor the Chinese citizen life. And some other scholars also proceed that this digital RMB is backed by the Central Bank of Chinese government, meaning that the Chinese Central Bank supported this movement. And with this innovation, the Chinese Central Bank will be able to track our citizen currency movement and their spending habits. And what does that mean? That means they will be monitoring the people's behavior. And aside from tracking people behavior or people whereabouts with a digital ID, the Chinese Central Bank will be able to analyze the lifestyle pattern of a citizen, their personal preferences, and their spending power. Also, with this kind of data, This data will not only help the Chinese government to understand our citizen, but it will also help them to monitor our citizen in a more comprehensive and in-depth manner. Furthermore, it can also be used as a suppression tools, which means with these suppression tools, they can use this to strengthen the stability of a regime, meaning the communism. For example, they may deprive a Chinese citizen in making essential daily transaction if he or she go against the rule or go against what the Chinese government require from the citizen, from a citizen. So looking at this, when we started this example of, trying to confiscate your property, you will see that, in the previous episode that I made, I discussed about some people raised against the Chinese government, talking about the digital identification, and the Chinese government named them as an enemy, and they deprived them of booking a flight ticket. They can't fly and they can't even take a bus. And with these kind of tools that the government has access to, I'm talking about the Chinese government, don't you think that if you are not doing what the government require, they can confiscate all your property and they can deprive you of even making a daily transaction? So, but the Chinese government were arguing that they are only looking at the benefits, while all the other points I raised was coming from the scholars that no, this is a totalitarian regime. You are trying to monitor everything about the citizen, and this will also give you more power to suppress and compel and subject any citizen that wants to rise against the government. So moving forward, what does the US do? The US government, or under the Trump administration, the US government ensure that they created a bill and they call it, so I'm sharing the screen, they call it the Clean Network. And look at this word. We call on all freedom loving nations and companies to join the Clean Network. So if you look at this, you can also look at this. This is coming from the Michael R. Pompeo, Secretary of State of the United States. So under the Trump administration, what are they trying to do? They are saying that, okay, we look at the way the Chinese party is going, and the Chinese party is Communist Party. So where the citizen has no say, whatever the government said shall be the final. But if you look at the United States is like they are a very democratic nation. That does not mean there won't be an issue. There will be an issue, but the citizen can voice. You can voice your voice. That means you have a voice to challenge the government, and the government cannot suppress you physically because you will use the law against them. So they are saying that people should come together to ban the Chinese Yuan app in the US because we are in a democratic state. So the US government don't trust the Chinese, what they were about to do. That if you can be putting a lot of surveillance cameras to spy on your citizen, and whoever go against you, you will suppress them. Whoever doesn't believe in your religion, you will take them to a re-education camp. In the US, they believe in a freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Do what you want to do, be what you want to be. So nobody should, that does not mean there's no discrimination, but there is a law in place, and the government cannot compel the people to do what they don't want to do. They will tell you this is what we want you to do. You might say, no, we disagree. So the US said, they are in a democratic state. They don't want the Communist Party because they believe these tools they are creating is like kind of propaganda to spy on the US citizen. And so they are bringing this bill that you can read it yourself. That is all about human rights, and they don't want people from collaboration post to the free world, which America is a free world, from authoritarian malign actor, which means the Chinese. So look at this. This information are there, and they said the US should not allow this app to function in the US. So we see that there is a economic war going between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. So that's why I'm showing you all this information, where the world is heading. So I've already told you in Sweden, since 2017, they've been using a digital ID. But Chinese is saying that we don't want to be using, so you can read all these things yourself, that we don't want to be using paper because paper, cost us a lot of money. So we want to reduce money. So you can see all this yourself. This is coming from the US Department of State. So do your own research diligently. And like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theory. I come with the facts just to educate people on what is going on out there. Do your own research. Look, China has already implemented digital, they call it social credit system. And now they are bringing a digital Yuan. They call it RMB, digital RMB. So they are talking about the good side of it. So, but the Americans are raising the other side effect of it, that total control. But people will ask that the US, are there no camera in the US? Yes, there's a camera in the US, like the store, like the school. Because they've been having a mass shooting in the school, so they put all those cameras to know what is going on, so that when any unforeseen circumstances happen, they'll be able to make a proper account, and using that to make a further recommendation. And you will also see that they have a camera at the stores to keep track of people of the shoplifting, because when the organization put money to serve the people, and some people came and be stealing, that will run the organization bankrupt. So they put all those cameras in store so that they can keep track of what is going on. So, but the way the Chinese is doing it, I think they are doing it in a very excessive way. That is the way it seems like that. Oh, this is total control. But the Chinese said, no, we are also trying to use the camera for security purposes, to ensure that people are good citizens. But the scholars were saying that if it's all about security, they have no problem. Is all about good citizen, know how to behave morally, they have no problem. But what about when one of the citizens said they disagree, or there is a corruption going on in China? And why does the government have to compel such an individual, and at the same time ensure that that individual cannot fly, and that individual social media was taken down? So US government said we have an issue with that, because that is not a freedom of speech. So I will see you next time, and thank you for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. So see you next time. Bye-bye.